I'm best-selling author Chris Sajnog, and today I'm going to share with you 3 of the biggest training mistakes that people learning to shoot tend to make, and I'm also going to teach you how to instantly fix them. And at the end, I'm also going to introduce you to a new product that I discovered that's really going to help make your training a lot faster and a lot easier. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so if you know me, you know I have a true passion for 2 things: teaching other people how to shoot and spending as much time as possible with my 2 boys. To accomplish this, I developed the New Rules of Marksmanship training system, which really focuses on learning how to shoot at home. So in this video, you're going to help me debunk 3 of the biggest myths I've heard over the past 25 years of training literally thousands of people just like you, so that when you hear them, you'll know the truth. So what are they? Well, myth number 1 is the myth of recoil. Myth number 2 is that dry fire training damages your gun. And then myth number 3 is, where should you train to shoot? Where's the best place for that? And by the way, if you have questions or comments, please leave them below this video. All right, so let's start off talking about the myth of recoil and the flinch. Now, this is number 1 on the list because I hear it all the time. People will say, it's not effective training if there's no recoil, or that the flinch or anticipation when you're shooting is just a biological response that everyone's just naturally going to have. So first off, let's debunk this old school myth that the gun is going to recoil or jump out of your hands every time you shoot, because it's just not true. The reason this happens is that most people just never learned how to hold the gun properly. I want you to think about this. If you never learned how to use a hammer before and how to hold it, that hammer would fly out of your hands too. But the great thing is the fix is really easy. Just learn how to hold the gun before you go into the range and start making it go bang, okay? All right, next up is the flinch or anticipation when shooting. And here's what you need to understand is that natural response is built into your system. It's there to actually protect us. It's to protect your head. But when you are shooting the gun the other way, right? The bullet's going bang the other way in the other direction, there is no threat to your head. So that old school thinking is like Bio 101. But in Psych 101, you learn about conditioned response. And now I'm sure, most of you know what conditioned response is, but for those of you that don't, what a conditioned response is, it's simply something that you learn to do or you react to when one thing happens. Okay, so think about this. Like if you get a dog from the pound that was beat, its whole life growing up, what's going to happen when you reach down, to pet that cute little puppy, right? It's going to flinch or it's going to recoil away from you. And, is your hand a threat? Obviously not. But, neither is that little explosion going off when your gun is pointed the other way. So keep that in mind. And really the great thing about knowing this is that now you won't spend the rest of your life, like really many of my students have, trying to fix these bad habits. You'll know the right way, okay? All right, myth number 2 is that dry fire is somehow going to damage your firearm. Your firearm is made to withstand the force of thousands of explosions going off inside of the chamber. So, dry fire training is not going to damage your gun. And if it does, thank God that it happens during dry fire training. Because, if that thing broke on the range while you were shooting, which it would have happened much sooner actually, then, that could cause serious damage, not just to your gun, but also to you. So unless you're using, a rim fire or a poorly made firearm, dry fire training is going to actually do less damage to your firearm than doing live fire training. And if you are concerned about it, there's things like snap caps you can use, or the product I'm going to talk about later, the iTarget training system. So, don't worry about dry fire training. And really the part you're really going to love is that by using dry fire training techniques, you can do them at home. And just like I teach in the New Rules of Marksmanship, you will be saving a ton of time and money just by doing it at home. We're on myth number 3 now, and that's the myth of where you should be training. So, I really saved the biggest myth and the most ludicrous myth for last, because it's really going to change the way you train forever. And I hear so many people say that, training with airsoft is not realistic, or training dry fire training or with laser targets, they're not realistic. But here's what I ask those people, and here's what I want you to ask yourself right now. It's this question. Is going to a range and shooting at a paper target that doesn't move, it doesn't shoot back at you, you can only shoot in one direction, is that realistic training? And, I'm really hoping right now that everybody watching this, like light bulbs just went off, and you're like, oh wow, that is not realistic at all, because, in real training, you need to be able to move around, and you can't do that live fire on a range, right? If you do, you'll probably get kicked off the range. Now, don't get me wrong, there is definitely a time and a place for live fire training, and it's something that you must do to really verify your training. But the range is not the best place for you to train. I mean, that's just, a fact. You should be learning at home. And, there's some great training tools and systems out there that you can use to really improve your training that weren't even around a few years ago. So listen, by learning the right way at home first and then going to the range, you'll be able to spend a lot more time, chasing your kids around than you are going, you're spending right now chasing rounds around your target at the range. Okay, so that went a little longer than I thought, but I thought it's really critical for you to understand why I like this product so much, and I really think it might possibly revolutionize the way that you learn to shoot. And it's called the iTarget training system. And full disclosure is that this was a free unit that was sent to me. I'm not being paid for this review, but I really think it's a great product, and that's why I wanted to talk to you about it. All right, so what is it? Well, it's a new laser target training system that utilizes the camera in your smartphone, and it gives you instant feedback. And it's the first system that I've found that does that. It uses something that you carry around in your pocket all the time. And if you've gone through my new rules of marksmanship course, constant feedback, or rule number 7, is really critical for rapid learning. Now, one of the cool features I've discovered using this is that you can actually track your progress, as you go. And it's really cool, and I think it's an important thing. And I'm sure you've even heard me say it before, but if you're not tracking your training, what you're doing is called playing. So, this is not a toy, although it does definitely make training a lot more fun. So you can pick one of these up for, it's like under $100. And, so if you want to save money when you're training, I'd say get one of these, because, if you look at just the cost of going to the range one time, it can easily go over $100 with targets and ammunition and stuff. So it pays for itself really quickly. I think it's a great investment in your training. And it's also just going to help you train a lot more effectively. So anyway, that's all I have for this video, but I want you to remember these 3 things. Number 1 is that recoil is a myth that can be busted by learning how to hold your gun. Number 2 is that dry fire is only going to damage your gun if it's a rimfire gun or the gun is already damaged. And then number 3 is that you need to train at home. It's really the best place. So if you're interested in picking one of these up, I will put a link below this video to their website, and you can check that out. I really think it's worth it. One of the only drawbacks I've found is that you can't compensate for bullet drop. So, you can't go in there and, point of aim, point of impact, which you're going to get with any laser training system. But I don't think it's that big of a deal, simply because, you're going to be using it close in, and that's really not going to come into play, number 1. And then number 2 is, if your whole goal, especially when it comes to accuracy, is really just getting better groups, on a target. So, and that's going to happen if you can do it with the iTarget here, or really any laser training system, airsoft even, that will translate to accurate rounds downrange on your target when you're shooting a live fire. So Anyways, go ahead and check it out. If you have, again, any questions or comments, please leave them below the video. Thanks for watching, and until we train again, keep paving your path to perfection.